Hi, I'm Lee Eggerstrom. I wrote the book Make No Small Plans that follows this video introduction. I want you to take a look at Renville, Minnesota, where we are today, before you get into reading my book. My book tells about communities that are creating new generation cooperatives and restructuring their local economies as they prepare themselves for the 21st century. Renville, Minnesota is one of those communities. 10 years ago, this town did not have a great future. The demographic trends suggested that Renville didn't really have a function, an economic reason for being as we move into the new century. The reason is that there are bigger towns around here. Farm supply and marketing services could be easily provided by those larger communities. It wasn't a particularly good place for retiring farmers to move to town in retirement either. The larger communities around here had better health care and medical facilities. These are problems that rural communities are facing all across the Midwest and western parts of the United States, and indeed in parts of New England and the Southeast as well. Well, young farmers, middle-aged farmers in the Renville area said this could be a good place for us to live, to work, to prosper, to play, and retire in the years ahead. So they've been making changes. They've created a number of new generation cooperatives that are returning more and more profits and economic activity and business revenues back into the Renville area. It spills over on other townspeople and to other farms in the area. Is having a dramatic impact. I want you to take a good look at this town and meet some of the people. This is what my book is all about. Thank you.
At first glance, small towns have much in common all across the nation. Good places to live and raise families. Less hustle and bustle than you see on the streets of cities. Like all societies, small towns create their own institutions and organizations, places to worship, and schools. The country and the small town can teach new generations the value of individual responsibility and action, and teamwork. Welcome to Renville, Minnesota. Renville is among a small number of communities in the upper Midwest where local people are creating new organizations, changing their institutions, and are pumping new life into their local economy.
A factor in Renville's revitalization has been the cooperatives. And you will now see Main Street where it's booming, where formerly vacant buildings now have shops and service providers, and they are a community with a future.
To do this, area farmers have been forming what are now called new generation cooperatives. These producer-owned businesses seek to add value to area farm-raised crops. In turn, business revenues and profits from value-added production and processing are returned to the community where they can be used to create more economic activity.
We're doing it to make money. It's pretty simple. You ask our shareholders what they expect a fair to above average return on the money that they invest in this thing.
Between 1991 and 1995, 4 new generation cooperatives were started at Renville. They include Valladco, a pork cooperative, United Mills, Midwest Investors, a laying hen cooperative, and Southern Minnesota Aquaculture Cooperative to raise tilapia fish. And at least 2 more are being studied.
I think Renville County has had a long history of having some very progressive producers. I think it goes back prior even to Southern Minnesota. But I think in terms of the cooperative development, certainly Southern Minnesota beet sugar cooperatives had a big influence on our ability to look at new ventures, because not only has it been a success story, even though they went through their difficult times in the late 70s, but I think it's helped build their confidence in terms of what they can do and how they fit into the food chain, and maybe we do have a part that's beyond just growing it and delivering it and having somebody tell us that this is what we'll give you for it. The merger of the elevators or cooperatives that made up Co-op Country back in 1986 allowed us to at least start from a larger capital base, and probably more importantly, a larger membership base that maybe allowed us to look at some opportunities that as individual cooperatives would have a difficult time justifying just because of the numbers get larger.
Volodco actually was established in 1991, and out of that we had originally 39 members, and what we were established for was to be a crossing farm. Technically we're producing F1 gilts for the swine industry. Out of that growth, out of our first farm, which then was built in 1992, we went forward with Crossing Farm 1, ultimately a second unit, which is 2,500 sows, and most recently the third and fourth unit, which added 5,000 sows, 2,500 each. We had 0 employees in 1991, and presently we have just over 50 employees for a town of 1,300. Does have an impact from a value-added standpoint, with both in earnings to our members and from a community development, economic development standpoint. It's been good for the town. It's a different way of hog production, which at times can be contentious, but clearly is environmentally sound, can be well managed, and can help producers stay in the mainstream of agriculture, stay on the farms, produce what we need to do, provide job opportunities for our families and for our community. So far that's turned out well.
More than 100 jobs have been created in Renville by the new generation cooperatives. And the economic benefits spill over to other farmers and townspeople as well.
One of the things we were dealing with here is we were corn and bean farmers only with some starter pullets here. We weren't big enough in anything to really be profitable, to really have a nice standard of living here. We had to get bigger, we had to squeeze out somebody else, or we had to find a different way to produce income here. When we were given the opportunity to do this, we were also given a contract to go with it. We're on contract with MII for 10 years that matches our loan, so we could build up the operation and be assured that we were going to make it ourselves because of that contract. When we did that, we produced, it was just like getting another 1,000 acres of land to us. What we ended up with is that the pullets became our profit center and the crops were just a sideline. What we did this year is gave up almost all the cropland, gave it to another small farmer. She's now big enough that she's viable, and we're concentrating on the pullets. So we feel like it made both of us more able to exist out here.
It took the contract that they were offering to, basically that was our collateral. We had a small amount of equity compared to what it would have took to finance something like this. But the 10-year contract basically gave us that equity, gave us the stability that the Bank of Co-ops needed to work with us. The barns hold 120, we want to come out with 127,000. It's a 16-week growing period, and we're shipping out a flock every 6 weeks and around 1,140,000 birds a year.
All this activity brings visitors to town and has local people talking. Some people worry that cooperatives may be changing the structure of agriculture. Other townspeople are pleased about the activity and improvements the cooperatives are bringing.
Presently, there's a group organizing, and they have got their cooperative name as Southern Minnesota Aquaculture Cooperative, which has its offices in Renville here at the present time, which will be raising tilapia fish. When the combines came out, it made farmers very independent. It made them able to farm by themselves. Prior to that, we had threshing crews, and I could also remember my father working with 10, 12 neighbors threshing together, and they'd move from one farm to the other. And the combines came out, we didn't have to do that. Today we're seeing by pooling resources, we can put up hog buildings, we can put up laying hen operations, sugar plants. We're kind of working together again, where we had a period of probably 40 years in there where we tried not to. We wanted to be independent.
There is a strong element of leadership in Renville. There are more young farmers and townspeople than is typical of small-town America. And these new leaders at Renville have a strong tradition of community cooperation to build on. The settlers pooled resources to build schools. The farmers started a community elevator that is now Co-op Country. And one of 3 banks in town is the Cooperative Credit Union. Area farmers cooperate to secure farm supplies, petroleum products, and marketing. Various cooperatives in west central Minnesota pooled resources and operate their own transportation cooperative out of Renville. While traditional co-ops paved the way, they taught Renville area farmers lessons that were later used to form Southern Minnesota Beet Sugar Cooperative in the early 1970s. This sugar co-op became one of the first new generation style cooperatives in the American Midwest.
The history of Renville is that we have a sugar beet plant, mill, east of town. Originally about 280 members, now approximately 440 members, and a new wave generation cooperative started then. That in this area was the first in a thought process. Secondly, then, it was Minnesota Corn Processors, out of Marshall, Minnesota, 40 miles from here, 45 miles from here. And those two led off in a big way the new generation cooperatives, the new generation cooperative being clearly different, that you put your money on the table to play. Comparing that to a standard supply cooperative where you show up, buy some product from a business, and therefore you're a member. A real basic difference in the mind of producers is that when you put your money on the table to purchase shares in a cooperative, 100% of your memberships want to see that business succeed because it took hard-earned money to make that investment.
The farmers are truly rediscovering cooperation and cooperatives as an extremely valuable business structure, one with a lot of inherent advantages that we probably haven't maybe exploited or used like we should have in the last few years. And we've changed them so that they fit more of the traditional investor. I think that we'll be involved in some things that we probably haven't thought of today. We're on the front of this thing and we're producing an egg or a fish or pork. I think there's a lot of opportunities in the different byproducts that come off of these different businesses, and we will work hard to manage that and make sure that we extract all that we can out of that as well. I really believe the future is bright for those rural communities that have some grassroots leadership and the courage to stand up and say, I think we can make this different, and that grassroots leadership absolutely has to come from the local producer farmer.
I think we're very optimistic with MII and the industrial park and the aquaculture coming. There's also some other projects that we're working on that we're not at liberty to say right now. With the federal grant that we got to put the hot water heat from the beet plant into the industrial park, they want to make that a showcase for the nation, because it's unheard of to do something like that.
In 25 years I've been here, and I've seen it grow and change from a very small community, and with probably no reason for young adults to stay here, to a community where there's every reason to stay here, because it's changing, it's growing. The co-ops are providing new, like I said, new jobs, new positions, and there was virtually nothing to do. There was no reason to stay here, because if you went on to college and got a job which required more education, you couldn't use it in Renville. Where now, with the co-ops and the management positions that are opening up, there's lots of opportunity to come back and continue growing here.
It's been very exciting to work with them. We've been a team. It's really become a team.
And I think that's the big message out here. That's always my message to people, is you got to find a way to be a team. They listen to us and we listen to them. And that's really what I think the message out here is you got to learn to work together. However you can fit it in, you have to learn to work together. That's what has to happen out here.